Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel where we create photorealistic assets together. So for today's video, we're going to go through how to texture this prop in Mari. I actually did a little poll in my Facebook group and this subject seems to be what interests most people. So today we're going to texture this prop and we're also going to use Mari Smart Masks for material mask creation instead of substance. Let's get started. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but now you can have smart masks in Mari. If you installed Mari Extension Pack 5, you should be able to build smart masks like you do in Substance Painter. If you want to learn more about this, I would recommend going to Mari Extension Pack YouTube channel. There are tutorial videos about basically every single tool that you will need to know. So for my prop today, I will be mostly focusing on the smart masks from the extension pack. The first thing you need to know about the smart masks in Mari is that there are two maps or two channels that you will need to bake and get ready before you can start using the system. You need to bake a good AO for your object and you need to bake a good curvature map for your object. Those are the maps that's going to drive everything else and create all sorts of different type of breakup for your smart masks. Understanding that, I went on an interesting adventure to get my AO map. You will see. The first and most straightforward way to bake your AO is to just go to Menu, Object, and choose Ambient Occlusion. Wait for it to process. Normally this doesn't take too long. Once it's finished, I will create the ambient occlusion node to see the bake. As you can see, this ambient occlusion is not necessarily the best quality. This quality can vary depends on what your subject is. I found that the more surface detail you have, the more artifacts you're going to see. If you have a subject that's more smooth surfaced, this might just work for you. For my object, there's quite a bit of surface detail on top, so it created a lot of artifacts that's not going to work for me. I also want to mention that the OBJ I imported into Mari for texturing is the decimated version of my object. It might be a little overkill for a hard surface object like this, but it's sort of just a habit of mine, so I can see all the surface detail inside of Mari. This is also a really big advantage of using Mari. You can't afford to use very heavy OBJs. So the second way to get an AO out of Mari that might provide a better quality is to use the modal render. It's one of the options on the main shelf. You can select it, go to Bake, and select AO. Then you might need to wait for a little bit to see a preview. If you're happy with the preview, you can start the baking process. And I would say modal is not the fastest way to bake AO. The whole thing took about 40 minutes, and my computer was going crazy. Granted, my OBJ is a little bit on the heavier side. But at the same time, this is just a prop with 5 UDIMs. Imagine you have to do this for an entire spaceship. Actually, at work, what people have to do, if they chose to use modal as their weapon of choice to bake AO, they will have to start the bake by the end of the day, and hopefully the next day when they come back to work, the AO is ready. In a production environment where there's deadline for everything, I really don't know if that's the best option. So this is the version I was able to get out of modal. The quality is definitely much better than the first one. I still see quite a bit of artifacts though. Just for my own curiosity, I want to bake another version of AO in Substance Painter just to compare which quality is better. Obviously inside the Painter, it's much faster. This is what the AO looks like in Painter. I think it's definitely the best quality out of all three. So I decided to export this one and import it into Mari and use this version. The curvature map is baked also in this process, and I'm just gonna import that one as well and save me some time trying to figure out how to get a super clean curvature inside of Mari. If anyone knows a really great way to do a very good curvature inside of Mari, I would love to hear about it. It's 5 minutes into the tutorial and we only talked about AO so far. I hope you guys are not bored. The AO baking process was always one of those things that's troubling to me inside of Mari, so I thought it would be useful to show you guys this whole process. Now we have a good AO channel and a good curvature channel ready inside of Mari. We can do the setup process for our smart masks. Mari Extension Pack really made this process very simple. You just need to open the shader shelf and drag any shader into your node graph. A dialog will pop up and ask you to select your AO channel and your curvature channel. There are other supporting maps you can add, such as height or thickness, but the only one that's essential for it to work is AO and curvature. So once you've selected those, you can just choose process. What it's doing right now is to generate a bunch of utility masks from AO and curvature to use for different smart mask setup. Once it's ready, it will create a new backdrop called GeoBakes with all these utility maps. Mine got all tangled with my other nodes, so I have to clean it up a little bit. Once I organized it, I'm just gonna put the entire backdrop in the corner of my node graph. Most likely we won't touch it, we just need it to be there. With all this setup ready, we are finally ready to start texturing. First thing we have to do, as always, is to analyze our reference. So from this reference, we can see there are two main materials. One is the metal material on top, and another one is the wood material. So that will be the first thing we do inside of Mari, is to set up two basic materials. Within my node graph, I create a diffuse backdrop for my diffuse channel. This is the first channel we'll be working on. This is also the main channel we'll be working on. Any other channel can be created from this. First thing, I will create two merge nodes. One is for wood material and one is for metal material. Once I created those merge nodes, I will create a tile node attached to it and throw a very basic material into those tile nodes. After that, I will create a material mask to separate those two. These tile nodes doesn't have to be super accurate at this moment. It's just a visual way to show me the basic material separation. Also with the UV, I separated my wood into the first row and the metal into the second row for easy selection. This is pretty standard for production. Once I'm happy with the material separation, I can start to work on the first wood texture in the wood material. To choose the best texture that matches your reference is all about observing and trying out different textures. I'm gonna keep going with the current one I have and see if it works. First thing I notice is that the color is a bit off. The reference is a bit more on the orange side and it's much darker, so that's the first thing I would change. I'm adjusting my HSV node and to get it as close as possible. Gonna do the exact same thing with the first metal texture, just get it a little bit closer to the reference. Now I'm okay with the first layer of wood. I'm gonna add the second layer, which to me is the darker part of the wood, mostly for the top and the bottom. I'm gonna use another merge node that's attached to a tile node, assign a darker wood material to that tile node, and then assign a mask to where I want those wood to show up. I think actually here I switched up the order. I actually put the dark wood as the base and the lighter wood as the layer on top. It's basically the same idea. The breakup on the wood can seem a bit complex, but I think in general, it's just a mixture between the light and the dark. That's why this is the first two colors I set up. I want to have the main color going first before we do any detailed breakup. I actually start to change up my base layer of texture because I thought it was way too flat. It does not have enough detail to it and it does not match the reference as close as I want it to be. I think this version will work a little bit better. Same for the lighter part of the wood. With a texture like this that has a little bit more detail, maybe later there's less work for us to do. We can start to add some more detail on the wood. Now I think that we have a decent starting point. The first thing I want to add is this very obvious brighter edge on the dark wood. And this is a great chance for us to test out our smart material that we spent 5 minutes of the tutorial to set up. Similar to Substance Painter, we got a bunch of preset smart masks, but there's also a mask builder that you can use to build whatever mask you like. I will start with that one. First, I want to explain the basic logic of the mask builder. So this is what it looks like. And if you click into it, this is all the functions you can adjust to make your own mask. There's a checkbox inside of every function. If you want to activate them, you have to click the checkbox. I won't explain every function, but basically for me, the best way to see it is see them as almost like layers. The bottom layer is the base color. By default, it's black. If you want to activate any layer, just have to click the checkbox. Every one of these functions has its own blending mode, so you can choose to blend them the way you like to achieve the results. I will show you how I created some of the material masks with this mask builder. When you create a brand new mask builder, the only function that's checked is the curvature. Since I want to create something around the edge, that's a great place to start. This is my first time using the mask builder inside of Mari, so it's completely new to me and I'm just trying out things as well. I know I need a mask around the edge, and I know that I need to break it up as well so it looks a bit more natural. So that's basically what I'm trying to achieve with this. I'm testing out some grunge maps that came with the extension pack, see if I can find a good breakup for the edge. I activated one of the texture function inside the mask builder and set it to multiply. Just one layer of breakup was not enough, so I activated another layer of texture breakup and finally got something that I think I can use. After I was happy with what the edge looks like, I actually decided to bake to its own paint node. You can choose to set up a radio transmitter node for this smart mask and just link that directly into your material. This way you can adjust it further in the future if you want to. For me, I just know that I will do a lot of painting on this mask, so might as well just bake it. After I bake my paint node, I will merge it into my light wood mask. Since the color of this edge is very similar to the color of the lighter shade of wood. Now I'm going back to my diffuse map and start to clean up this mask and try to make it match the reference better. I think this is an okay starting point for the edge. After I'm happy with the edge, I start to observe what other area that this lighter shade of wood go across into the dark shade. At the bottom area, it's a clear mix of the light and the dark, so that's the area I'm going to work on now. You might be curious about how I got the stencil I'm using currently. I basically just went on the internet and looked for very broken wood material and make it a black and white stencil in Photoshop. When you choose your stencil, definitely make sure you observe your reference carefully and choose something that's very close to what you see. For a basic wood material, there's a lot of horizontal patterns, so I tend to choose things with very strong direction. The next big characteristics I see from the reference is all this big scratch around the edge area as well. And luckily, those scratch are also the same color as the light wood, so I don't really have to add any extra material. I just need to keep working on that blending mask and make it a little more interesting. Be aware that some of the scratch follows the direction of the wood. That is why I'm using a wood grain stencil to make sure that my mask has very strong direction to it. This is the kind of characteristics that you want to be able to see in your reference and make sure you capture to properly represent the material. This is also one of the reasons why you keep hearing people say having good eye is one of the most important things in terms of being a good texture artist, because how can you copy something if you cannot see it? So besides learning software, definitely make sure that you put in effort developing your eyes. So besides those large scratch that has a very strong direction to it, I also see this smaller, more broken up scratch that the direction is a bit different than the large one. So this is the next one I'm going to add. After I'm happy with the surface scratch, I'm going to start to break up the lighter wood material a bit more. As you can see on the reference, it's not just one color. There's actually big breakup on it. So to do that, I actually add another wood material. The color is kind of between the light and the dark, and I'm gonna start to use a big stencil to brush that color in. I'm also adjusting the color of this layer at the same time to make it a bit closer to the reference. As you can see, this sort of breakup is kind of everywhere. So I'm just going to go over my entire object and making sure that those breakup look fairly similar to the reference. I'm not trying to match things one-to-one here because it would just take too long. Another interesting detail on the reference I saw was underneath the bright edge, there's actually an area that gets very, very dark. And it definitely created an interesting contrast for the texture. So I want to put that in my texture as well. I also see those dark areas in other places too. So I want to make sure I capture them. Another great way to look at this is that you are basically arranging light value to dark value to make this object look interesting. The general elements of this object is actually very simple. You got a light wood, you got a dark wood, you got a medium wood, and you got some extra dark corners, and you got some lighter edges, and that's about it. Once you have all these elements in your texture, it's really about how you mix them and how you arrange them to make it look interesting. The last big character I see on this wood is you actually get some very bright light scratches. Just gonna add that in my texture as well. Gonna move my attention to the metal now. In general, this metal looks pretty simple to me. It's just one shade in general. The only thing I see is there's a brown breakup on top of this dome shape thing. So I added another brown texture on top of the base metal texture and brush in that brown color. I also see a lot of visible scratches on this dome. So that's the next thing I add. Same with the brown color, I just added another texture on top that's a bit brighter. Assigned a mask to it and basically using the same stencil I used for the wood scratch. This is a common characteristics for a lot of metals is that the edge is always a bit brighter. So I'm going to use the smart mask again and create a bright edge for the metal. I also see this very visible cavity grunge or maybe rust. So I'm also using smart mask to create that as well. The last thing I use the smart mask to do is the overall dust. It's always nice to have that layer to break up your speck. For this one, I'm adding the object normal function, so it looks like the dust is mostly from the top. After adding those elements, we're ready to create our supporting maps for the render. We will be generating our supporting map from our diffuse map. I'm gonna go over this process very quickly because this video is already very long, but I have a separate video that's only about how do you create supporting maps from your diffuse map, and I will link it down below. Basically, I'm just duplicating the exact same structure I had for my diffuse map for my, let's say, roughness. I will add a luminance node to it so everything is black and white. I will duplicate the same material into my roughness map and assign the exact same masks that I used in my diffuse map into my roughness map. Since obviously I use a radio transmitter node, so all I need to do is just assign another radio node and connect it to the transmitter node. If you do not understand how radio transmitter and radio node works, I explained it in another video called Introduction to Mari Node. I will link that video down below as well. I will go through the node graph quickly with you. So it's exactly the same thing as diffuse. First is the base wood. Then I have the lighter wood. I have the scratches. I have the dark edge, basically anything that I think the roughness is going to be slightly different. And the next thing is the metal. I have a layer for scratch, layer for rust. The only extra thing I add here is extra roughness on top. It's for any specific area that I need to tone down the roughness. That is about it. It's in general, the roughness and the bump will end up looking much simpler than the diffuse map. I want to quickly show you what all the map looks like in the end. This one is diffuse. My final roughness map. Of course, this is after final adjustments, after I started rendering. I didn't include rendering in this tutorial because it's already very long. Maybe I will do another prop in the future where we're mostly focusing on rendering and how to fix your maps after you start rendering. This is what a bump map looks like in the end. That's it. That's the whole texturing process of this prop. I hope you got something from this. I'm sorry the painting process is a bit sped up. I just really don't want my YouTube tutorial to be too long. If you would like something more detailed, I do have a 5-hour fully narrated Mari texturing tutorial up on my Gumroad, so you can check that out if you're interested. I hope you have a safe and great day, and I will talk to you later.